What if everything you thought you knew about one of Hollywood's most beloved icons suddenly took a startling turn? Gene Hackman, celebrated for his unmatched talent and fiercely guarded personal life, was reportedly discovered under circumstances so confounding that even veteran detectives remain baffled. Equally mystifying is the role played by his wife, Betsy Arakawa, who was found at his side. Yet the exact sequence of their final moments defies explanation. How could an actor, praised for decades and admired for his unwavering commitment to privacy, depart in such a bewildering way? Longtime fans of Hackman's legendary performances, from The French Connection to Unforgiven, were left reeling by the news of his and Betsy's passing. But as hushed whispers grow louder and fresh details emerge, an even more puzzling picture begins to take shape. Were these events simply the inevitable outcome of advancing age, or do they hint at a hidden reality more disturbing than we ever imagined? Stay with us, because the most astonishing revelations are still to come. Investigators have uncovered clues that only deepen the mystery, leaving us to question everything we thought we knew about this enigmatic Hollywood legend. Gene Hackman, 95, and Betsy Arakawa, 64, shared a secluded residence in Santa Fe, New Mexico, far from the glitz and chaos of Hollywood. It was a place they called their personal refuge, a sanctuary of sweeping desert landscapes and tranquil sunsets. For years, neighbors saw them as private but affable, often appreciating how their presence added a quiet star power to the community. Yet when the couple stopped answering calls and missed a few routine maintenance appointments, red flags shot up. A group of concerned workers reportedly decided to check on the pair after multiple days of total silence. Their arrival at the front steps led to an eerie scene: locked doors, no lights on, and an unmistakable sense that something was amiss inside. No voices, no telltale clatter of daily life, just an unsettling quiet that set everyone on edge. What the group discovered inside the residence was even more jarring. By the time they reached Gene and Betsy, it was clear both were gone. Initial relief that they might have simply been away on an unannounced trip vanished in an instant. Local authorities were called in, and an early assumption was that age or illness had taken Hackman's life. After all, he was in his mid-90s, and while known to be quite spry, time remains undefeated. But the conclusion wasn't nearly as straightforward as people hoped. Santa Fe County Sheriff Mar Rodriguez made a statement to the media within 24 hours of the find, emphasizing that the early evidence didn't perfectly align with a simple case of natural demise. The bodies, especially Betsy's, showed signs that raised more questions than answers. She appeared to have been deceased for several days longer than her husband, a detail that cast an immediate layer of mystery over the scene. How could one person pass away and remain undiscovered, even by their spouse, for so many days in the very same home? The discovery stage became a flurry of police activity, with forensics teams meticulously going through every inch of the property, checking for signs of forced entry, foul play, or any clue that might illuminate what exactly transpired. It's rare for a high-profile couple to pass under uncertain conditions without leaving a string of easily decipherable clues. Yet, in the Hackman-Arakawa home, nothing seemed definitive. No shattered glass, no trace of a struggle, no obvious toxins in plain view. Curiosity only deepened once the public got wind of the news. Social media lit up with theories, some pointing to the possibility of a tragic accident, others speculating about an environmental hazard in the house. But an undercurrent of suspicion formed almost immediately. Something about this situation felt off, even to casual observers. Why hadn't the longtime couple's typical routines alerted anyone sooner? And why did the timing of their deaths appear so strangely staggered? As investigators wrapped up the initial sweep of the property, the narrative of a quiet life in Santa Fe came crashing into the harsh reality that two people, deeply connected for over 3 decades, were gone in a manner that refused to be easily explained. The discovery was only the beginning. What would unfold in the coming days and weeks would turn a perplexing scene into a full-blown enigma that still has fans, friends, and family grasping for clarity. The puzzle began with the harrowing question: how could two people in the same house die days apart without anyone intervening? That is what initial forensics reports suggested. Betsy Arakawa had seemingly been gone for a period longer than Gene Hackman. Those early hours after a discovery are crucial, and law enforcement knew they had to piece together every detail before the trail went cold. One of the most perplexing elements was the condition of Betsy's remains. Authorities noted a degree of decomposition inconsistent with Jean's, indicating she had likely passed significantly earlier. Yet, there was no blatant sign of trauma or violence on her body. According to an unnamed source within the investigative team, the couple's bedroom was undisturbed, with no apparent signs of a struggle or forced restraint. The bed looked slept in, household items were in their usual places, and none of Betsy's possessions suggested she had tried to leave in haste. In the adjacent room, Jean Hackman was found in what many described as a peaceful position. Again, no external injuries, no obvious sign of any clandestine materials. But certain subtle details gave detectives pause. Why was a glass of water overturned next to him? Why were several of the curtains drawn when the couple typically favored open sunlight? And most puzzling of all, how did a man as active and sharp as Jean fail to report Betsy's sudden absence of consciousness? Unless he couldn't. Neighbors, who adored the couple's quiet presence, recalled that the last time they saw Jean, he was carrying groceries into the house with surprising vigor for a man his age. None of them remembered hearing anything out of the ordinary. No calls for help, no shouting, no sound of emergency. It was as if life inside the HACKMAN Arakawa household had stopped in total silence. Then came the question of the security system. The HACKMAN'S were known to have a robust alarm setup, something they invested in to ensure privacy. Yet the logs revealed no alerts, no break-ins, and no triggered sensors that would indicate a forced entrance or even suspicious activity around the perimeter. Investigators pored over these records, expecting to find something, anything, that pointed to a reason for this bizarre discrepancy in the couple's times of death. But the system logs remained maddeningly mundane. As days ticked by, the rumor mill churned. Some whispered about an undiagnosed illness that might have taken Betsy first, leaving Jean disoriented, especially at his advanced age. Others speculated about carbon monoxide poisoning or a slow-acting toxin. But with no immediate evidence of environmental hazards, the story grew murkier. Betsy had indeed succumbed to some internal complication. How had Jean also ended up losing his life without anyone noticing? Experts who have observed unusual cases like this before caution that early forensics can be misleading. Conditions in the home, temperature, ventilation, and even local climate can skew the apparent timeline of death. Nonetheless, the sheriff's department was taking the mismatch seriously, labeling the situation suspicious due to the unknown factors at play. Public intrigue soared to a fever pitch. Was it a tragic set of circumstances or something far more sinister? Adding fuel to the fire was the revelation that the coroner's preliminary analysis was inconclusive. Toxicology reports would take weeks, if not longer, leaving everyone in limbo. The only certainty was that nothing about this case could be classified as normal. The stage was set for deeper scrutiny and for new angles to emerge, each more puzzling than the last. Jean Hackman was the kind of man who defied traditional concepts of aging. Even at 95, he was reportedly active, engaging in Pilates, taking long walks, and, according to friends, dabbling in gentle forms of yoga to keep his mind and body in sync. He had a charming resilience that seemed to emanate from every pore, the same dedication that once fueled iconic performances on the silver screen. It wasn't just about physical stamina, though. Those close to him spoke of his sharp wit and quick humor, the very qualities that made him a legend in the first place. This robust state of health only made his final story more perplexing. If anyone was going to surpass a century, some believed it would be Jean. His daily routines were almost ritualistic. An early morning stretch, a breakfast mostly comprising fresh fruits, and a midday walk in the crisp New Mexico air. Betsy Arakawa, nearly 3 decades his junior, was widely credited for encouraging these wholesome habits. Although she maintained a private life, her background as a classical pianist highlighted her structured, disciplined mindset. Together, they seemed to have formed a balanced partnership that genuinely worked. Over the years, the couple had become a beloved fixture in Santa Fe. Locals recall seeing them at community arts festivals and fundraisers, supporting young musicians or students who lacked resources. That philanthropic streak extended into personal connections as well. They might have been A-list in reputation, but neither Jean nor Betsy wore their fame in an ostentatious way. Their choice to reside in New Mexico rather than Los Angeles or New York had much to do with preserving an authentic sense of peace. As word of their passing spread, the sheer contrast between Jean's outward vitality and the grim outcome fed a swirl of theories. The narrative that they both died quietly at home, days apart no less, clashed with every piece of evidence about how they lived. If Jean was so energetic and alert, wouldn't he have called for help the instant Betsy showed signs of any distress? Why would a man so seemingly in control of his life suddenly lose all capacity to act? Family members, especially Jean's daughter from his previous marriage, Leslie, spoke publicly about how her father was in excellent shape, at least from everything she observed. She described him as more than just physically capable. He was mentally attuned, often reading voraciously and discussing current events. To hear her tell it, the portrayal of an elderly man quietly succumbing without any sign of alarm didn't align with the man she knew. This juxtaposition between Jean's radiant public image and the mysterious conditions under which both he and Betsy were found has become one of the most confounding aspects of the entire case. It's a direct challenge to the notion that a single tragedy, like an unexpected demise, could create a domino effect for the other spouse in such a short time. And as more people weigh in on the subject, the lines between plausible explanation and unsettling speculation grow increasingly blurred. If health wasn't the immediate culprit, then what was? Hollywood is brimming with short-lived romances and fleeting bonds, yet Jean and Betsy's partnership defied those grim odds. For over 30 years, they remained devoted companions. Their wedding in 1991 was a quiet event, reflecting their preference for genuine intimacy over headline-making spectacle. Friends described them as kindred spirits, each complementing the other's temperament. Where Jean could be intense and sometimes blunt, Betsy offered gentleness and intellectual depth. Jean's daughter, Leslie, has been the primary spokesperson since news broke. A woman who has always respected her father's privacy, she stepped into the spotlight with raw honesty. Struggling to maintain composure, she shared anecdotes that painted a picture of an unusually close family, one where age gaps between Jean and Betsy were insignificant, overshadowed by shared interests and unwavering mutual care. Her heartfelt statements made it clear that Betsy was more than just a supportive spouse. She was an essential element of Jean's life, ensuring he stayed connected to the joys of everyday living. Whether it was encouraging him to paint, experiment with woodworking, or simply read for hours on end, Betsy was the steady hand in the background, helping him navigate a world that once revolved around Hollywood sets and award ceremonies. News of their joint passing shook Leslie to her core. In an emotional press conference, she recounted a conversation she had with Jean just days before he was found. It was about trivial, everyday matters. His new exercise routine, a book recommendation, and even an upcoming meal they planned to share in a few weeks. Nothing in his voice indicated distress or concern. Thank you for staying with us through this revealing, if unsettling, exploration of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's final chapter. We promise to keep you updated should new facts emerge, and we encourage you to keep your mind open until the full story is known. In the meantime, share your most cherished Gene Hackman roles or moments, and let's remember the legacy he and Betsy left behind, one that teaches us about endurance, artistry, and the quiet power of a life well lived.